Do you want to develop awesome technique on your instrument and develop killer finger speed and agility and strength as quickly and efficiently as possible? Well, then this video is for you. So when I was a kid, I actually suffered from a nerve condition that prevented me from being able to practice for a really long time. So I had to improve with actually only having very short periods of time that I could be physically at my instrument. So these 8 tips that I'm about to give you today are how I managed to develop really awesome technique on the piano without actually practicing physically for hours and hours a day. These tips are going to help you maximize your efficiency and be able to improve in as little time as possible. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, guys, so tip number 1 may seem like a no-brainer to a lot of you, but I would also be willing to bet that many of you, myself included, often skip this one. So tip number 1 is warm up. Warming up is so incredibly important. And I'll tell you why, guys, because we need to think of ourselves as athletes, okay? We are training a very specialized muscle set, regardless of what instrument you play, whether if you're a wind player or a horn player, you're training your lips. As a pianist, I'm training my forearms, my fingers. It is absolutely essential that we take the time to get our blood flowing, make sure that our technique is primed for improvement. Why? Because number 1, if you don't warm up, obviously you're gonna be so prone to injury. No athlete goes into the gym and just starts lifting at their top weight. It would just lead to so many problems. And number 2, we actually want to be able to perform at our top level each time we practice so that we can push further and improve each time. If you start cold, you are going to be putting yourself at a disadvantage and you are not going to improve nearly as effectively as if you had just taken a little bit of time to warm up. All right, guys, so tip number 2 is use good form. So too many times have I had students just want to rush into learning a new technique or a new challenging piece of music as quickly as possible. Well, I have to tell you right now, guys, patience is key here. You should start slow, make sure that you're doing it correctly, because if you don't, then just like a weightlifter who starts doing an exercise wrong, as soon as they start getting up into heavier weights, they are literally gonna have to go back and relearn how to do that exercise properly, and that is a huge waste of time. So if you are just a bit patient, learn the proper technique, the proper form, the proper way to physically play your instrument in this specific exercise or passage right from the start, you are actually gonna save yourself a lot of time going forward. Okay, guys, so tip number 3 is to challenge your brain. In fact, I would go so far as to say, the more dysfunctional you feel mentally while you are practicing, the more you are going to be improving in a shorter amount of time. So there is undoubtedly a really important connection between our brains and what we are doing as musicians. When we hear sounds, we interpret it as music, and then we translate it to our fingers and our physical technique. So we are quite actually literally building connections in our brains for new skills as we are learning and practicing things that are challenging to us. So the moment something feels like second nature to you, and you can actually, let's say talk to someone or watch TV while you're practicing it, switch it up and do something else, because you want to be constantly forcing your brain to strain and think. And if you're doing that, then you are definitely going to be maximizing the efficiency of your practice, and you will improve far more quickly than if you were doing something that was as easy as second nature. So tip 4 is to challenge your muscles. Now, this is very similar to how we talked about challenging our brains in take 3, but in this case, I'm talking purely about the physical aspect of your technique. So you should be doing exercises or learning pieces that, for example, force your fingers to do slightly larger stretches or stretch in a new way. You should be trying fingerings that force your hand to do fast movements or quick jumps, or maybe even test your actual endurance playing a fast passage for a long time or something of that sort. Of course, I'm talking about piano here, but if you play another instrument, similarly, make sure to do exercises that challenge your physical technique and force you to do new physical motions. So again, if you challenge yourself physically and avoid doing things that are physically easy for you, you're gonna improve much more quickly. Tip 5 is to get proper nutrition and good sleep. So I think this is something that a ton of musicians ignore. And honestly, I do totally get it, because as musicians, sometimes our schedules can be crazy. We're working really late at night with different gigs, and also probably eating free food that we get at gigs or having to order out. But honestly, guys, if you want to operate at maximum capacity and improve as a musician as quickly as possible, this is another moment where you have to think of yourself as an athlete. After a hard workout, you're going to get good protein and antioxidants to make sure that you heal quickly and heal well. And also on top of that, while we're sleeping, that is when our brain is forming memories and forming the connections that help us integrate all of the information that we absorbed that day. So you need to make sure, if you want to be at maximum efficiency, that you're eating well and sleeping well. It's going to help you a lot, so I highly recommend it. Tip number 6 is to change up your routine. So a mistake that I've made many times is I will make a practice routine that I love, literally schedule out what exercises I'm gonna do for how long, and then I will just practice that every day for a month. And I can promise you that after about week 1, the efficiency of that routine starts to be less, and the gains and improvements I see continually go down. So I would recommend that every single week you think about a new practice routine. What exercises can you switch out? How can you actually change up the techniques that you're focusing on, or even the different type of muscles that you're working? Maybe in the first week you're doing exercises that really help you with stretching. Maybe in the second week you do exercises that really help you out with endurance. Another thing I might recommend is you might actually switch up your routine every few days, or even do a 1, 2, 3 day cycle. So day 1, you work on stretching exercises. Day 2, you work on endurance. And day 3, maybe you work on something else altogether, ear training, I don't know. But all I'm saying is the more you change up your routine, the more you're gonna train your brain to be in different situations each time. And I promise you, it's gonna be a more efficient way of improving your musicianship and ability. Tip number 7 is good posture and core strength. So good posture is so essential. As someone who's studied a lot of Alexander technique, I can tell you that quite literally from the first day I improved my posture, I could actually play significantly faster. It actually kind of blew my mind. So I think it's also really important to strengthen your entire core, because you need to be able to maintain good posture for hours on end if you're practicing a lot. And regardless, all of your muscles work together. So the more strength you have throughout your whole body, the less work your essential muscles for technique are gonna have to do while you're playing. So if going to the gym is too much, even just going for a walk every day, doing some body weight exercises is gonna go a really long way towards helping you maintain good posture and therefore really good, strong technique. Our 8th and final tip is probably my favorite of all of these, and that is to practice away from your instrument. So I get that this may seem a little counterintuitive when we're talking about technique, but you can actually make a ton of progress just by thinking about the things you want to improve in music. So there are actually workshops where musicians will spend a weekend learning a piece just by looking at the music, thinking about fingerings in their head and going over the piece in their heads. And then on the last day, they will sit down and play that entire piece for the first time ever. You would be amazed at how good it sounds. You would be amazed at how much progress you can make away from your instrument. So whenever you are on your way to work or at work doing something mindless or just falling asleep in bed, be thinking about music, think about the techniques you want to improve. You can actually be making musical improvement in that time. So that is an amazing way to maximize your technique improvement potential. All right, guys, I hope you found those tips really, really helpful. And I know that they can sound a bit overwhelming, especially for us musicians who aren't used to, necessarily taking our health super seriously as like a core element of what makes us good musicians. But I promise you that the more of these you can integrate into your life, the more quickly you're gonna see musical improvements as well. If some of this sounds overwhelming, you don't have to do this all at once. Take it slow, take it at your own pace. Maybe try integrating one of these tips at a time, see if it works for you. And the most important thing is just don't burn out and keep doing what you love. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this content helpful, please make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the little bell for notifications so you don't miss any more stuff just like this video. Also, on my website, I've got a bunch of really cool technique exercises available. It's jazzpianoconcepts.com/store if you're interested. And of course, every single purchase that you make goes towards helping me make more videos just like this one. So I really, really appreciate it. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.